At her $10 million dinner, my daughter smiled for the crowd, then turned to me, her own mother, and sneered. Why keep an old woman around when you've got staff now? I stayed quiet, but her fall came louder than any laugh in that room. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The chandelier above Monica's new marble dining table glistened like it knew it didn't belong there. 12 guests sat around the sprawling mahogany, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings of a house built too fast and too loud. The wine was French, the steak barely pink, and the conversation revolved around one thing: money. Specifically, Monica. I still can't believe it. A woman in a silk halter dress giggled, swirling her Pinot. 10 million. What are you even gonna do with all that? Monica leaned back like a queen on her throne, perfectly manicured fingers wrapping around a crystal flute. Let's just say, I'll never clip another damn coupon in my life. The table erupted in applause. Elaine Harris sat at the far end, her posture straight despite the insult. She stirred her soup slowly, silently. The faint smile she wore was polite, practiced, masking something sharper beneath. Victor, Monica's husband, raised his glass. To Monica, Queen of Windfall Way. More laughter, louder this time. And to our future, Monica added, lifting her glass. A future without burdens. The word lingered. Elaine looked up, eyes narrowing just enough. You know, Monica went on, voice honeyed but laced with something crueler. Some people think winning the lottery changes you, but me? It just gave me the clarity I always needed. Clarity. Patricia Dean, Elaine's best friend, raised an eyebrow from beside her. She was dressed conservatively, the only guest in slacks and pearls instead of cocktail flash. Monica turned toward Elaine, like realizing I've been holding on to things, people, that don't serve any purpose anymore. A few guests shifted in their chairs. Elaine didn't blink. Go on? Oh, Mom, don't act so surprised. Monica's laugh had no warmth. I mean, why keep an old woman around when you've got staff now? Jasmine, sitting 2 seats down from Elaine, stiffened. Her phone slid subtly into her lap, camera tilted upward beneath the tablecloth. Someone coughed. Victor chuckled nervously. She's joking. No, she's not, Jasmine said softly, barely audible. Monica pretended not to hear. I've got a chef now. A cleaner. Hell, I'm hiring a personal shopper next. You think I need someone reminding me to take my meds or fold towels into perfect triangles? Elaine rose slowly. The scrape of her chair against the floor was louder than any laugh that came before it. Elaine, Patricia started, but Elaine gently waved her off. I'm not hungry, she said, folding her napkin with precision, placing it beside her untouched plate. And I don't believe I'm needed here. Ah, come on, Mom. Don't be dramatic. This is my night. You're right, Elaine said, her voice smooth as ice. It is. She walked past the table, not bothering to meet anyone's eyes. Jasmine's hand brushed hers as she passed. Elaine squeezed her fingers, just once, before letting go. When the front door clicked shut behind her, the air seemed to suck out of the room. Victor let out a breath. Well, that was... She'll get over it, Monica said, waving her hand. She always does. Patricia stood next. No, dear. Not this time. Her eyes swept the table. She may be old, but she remembers everything. That's what people forget about women like Elaine. Monica rolled her eyes. She's harmless. Patricia gave a dry laugh. That's what you think. Outside, Elaine stood on the quiet cul-de-sac, the humidity wrapping around her like a cloak. Her hands didn't tremble. Not yet. But her heart. It burned in silence. A furnace built over decades. Jasmine came out minutes later, voice low. Grandma, I recorded it. Everything. Elaine looked straight ahead. Good. I'm sorry. Don't be. She turned to Jasmine, eyes calm but cold. She did what she needed to do. Now I'll do the same. Behind them, the party noise faded into the background hum of wealth and ignorance. Patricia's car pulled up. She rolled down the window. They forgot what you own? Elaine opened the door and got in. She didn't smile, not quite, but something in her eyes shifted, resolve taking shape. They'll remember soon. Rain tapped softly against the windows of Elaine's modest kitchen as she opened the file box. It had sat untouched for over a year, tucked under the bench where she kept her ledgers and records, receipts from a lifetime of scrimping, of tracking every penny so her daughter could have things she never asked for. Jasmine sat across the table, curled in a hoodie, eyes rimmed red. Her phone lay screen down in front of her. The silence was thick. Elaine pulled out a thick manila envelope labeled Windfall Way Lot Deed in her precise block handwriting. She opened it, unfurled the folded legal sheets, and pointed to a highlighted section. "She doesn't own the land," she said, voice even. "Just the house." Jasmine blinked. "Wait, what?" Elaine adjusted her reading glasses. She rushed the build. Monica's credit wasn't strong enough on its own, so I co-signed the land purchase with a lien held in my name. She flipped to a stamped page. She paid for the granite countertops. I paid for the dirt it sits on. The girl sat up straighter. "So, legally?" "She's squatting," Elaine replied. Then she reached for another folder. This one was thicker, heavier, pages curled and faded at the edges, business registration forms, tax document, and finally, a series of promissory notes bearing Monica's signature. "Remember her little juice bar?" Elaine asked, sliding the stack forward. Jasmine winced. "The one that closed in, like, 5 months? She borrowed $68,000 from me. Never paid a cent back." Elaine smoothed one of the notes. She promised she would. Said it was just a short-term loan until she got traction. "Grandma," Jasmine whispered, voice cracking. "She can't do this to you." Elaine didn't look up. She was already reassembling the papers, snapping them into a leather folio. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, locking the clasp shut. She already did. She stood, smoothed her blouse, and reached for her purse. "Now I undo it." Alan Monroe's office smelled like leather, old books, and quiet power. He looked up from the folio with a raised brow, adjusting the silver frames on his nose. "Jesus," he muttered, flipping through pages again. "You kept everything." Elaine sat prim, hands folded in her lap. "That's how I stayed poor and out of jail. I kept everything." Alan's mouth twitched into a brief smile. "That land deed, no expiration on the lien?" "Correct." "And these promissory notes?" She signed each one, handwritten, dated, 2 of them notarized at that UPS on Clifton Road. Alan exhaled, setting the documents down slowly. "Elaine, I've handled a lot of messy family cases, but I gotta say, this is surgical." She said nothing. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "You want my honest opinion?" "I do." "You could take the house back," he said. Fast. Jasmine, seated beside Elaine now, let out a stunned breath. "File a lien enforcement," Alan continued. "Push the land issue and the business debt simultaneously. She won't have the cash to fight both fronts. She's flashy, not liquid. I've seen this before." Elaine's lips pressed into a thin line. She nodded once. Jasmine turned to her, eyes wide. "Are you really going to do it?" Elaine finally looked at her granddaughter, something icy and clear flickering behind her eyes. She wanted to forget where she came from. She said softly, "I'm just reminding her." Alan tapped the file once. "Do you want me to draw up the filings?" Elaine didn't blink. "By tomorrow." That night, as thunder rolled in the distance, Elaine sat back at her kitchen table, an open checkbook in front of her, jasmine tea steaming nearby. Across from her, Patricia watched her in silence for a long moment before speaking. "You really ready to pull the trigger?" Elaine didn't answer right away. She was watching the rain again. Then she turned, sharp as ever. "I gave her my name, my roof, my saving, and she spit on all of it. And now?" Elaine clicked the pen. Closed. "Now I take back what was always mine." It was a quiet Thursday morning on Windfall Way. Blue sky, birdsong, and a lawn crew humming in the distance. But when the sheriff's cruiser rolled slowly down the street and parked in front of Monica's massive white brick McMansion, it might as well have been a siren. Elaine stood at the edge of her driveway a few houses down, coffee cup in hand. Jasmine lingered beside her, half shielded behind a rose bush. Patricia watched from the driver's seat of her parked sedan, window down, purse in her lap like a silent judge. The sheriff stepped out, clipboard in hand, and made no attempt to be discreet. He walked up the stone steps, unfolded a neon yellow sticker, and slapped it straight onto Monica's oversized glass door. "Notice of foreclosure. Immediate action required. Property subject to lien enforcement." The tape hissed as it smoothed across the glass, loud, unforgiving. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the front door yanked open. What the hell is this? Monica's voice sliced the air, shrill and echoing. She was barefoot, wrapped in a silk robe that looked expensive and unwashed. You can't put this here. This is private property. The sheriff didn't flinch. Ma'am, your lender filed lion enforcement. You've been served. Victor appeared behind her, shirtless and groggy. What is this? Who called this in? Elaine took a calm sip of her coffee, eyes never leaving the house. I'm calling my lawyer, Monica screamed. She ripped the notice off the glass with a wild gesture, crumpling it in her fist. This is harassment. Victor stormed onto the porch. He spotted Elaine down the street. Oh, I see, he growled. Of course, this is her doing. Elaine didn't move. Jasmine started recording. Victor pointed directly at her. You're jealous. That's all this is. You couldn't handle your daughter doing better than you. Elaine raised her chin. Pay your debts, or lose your castle. It wasn't loud, but it carried. 2 doors down, a curtain twitched. A neighbor paused mid-step on the sidewalk, pretending to look at their phone. Monica's eyes widened. You... She took a step forward, robe flapping. You're trying to ruin me. No, Elaine said simply. You did that yourself. I'm just holding the receipt. Victor shouted after the sheriff, who was already back in his cruiser. You tell your boss this isn't over. The sheriff didn't even turn his head. He pulled away slow, his tires crunching gravel, leaving behind silence and a ripped notice fluttering in Monica's clenched hand. Across the street, Mrs. Ellison stood beside her mailbox, pretending to sort envelopes. You see what she's doing? Monica shrieked to no one and everyone. She's turning the whole neighborhood against me. Jasmine lowered her phone. Too late. Elaine finally turned to Patricia, who was watching through narrowed eyes. Well, Patricia murmured, starting the ignition. Now the walls talk. Elaine nodded once. Let them. Later that day, the remnants of the morning's drama played on loop in a group text chat among the neighbors. Someone had snapped a photo. Monica's face twisted in rage, Victor pointing like a cornered animal, and that unmistakable foreclosure sticker bright as sun against the door. Elaine sat in her kitchen, flipping through a folder Alan had dropped off. You didn't even blink, Jasmine said from the table, watching her. I've done the blinking, Elaine replied. Now I watch. You think she knows what's coming? Elaine closed the folder and looked up. No, she said. But she will. That evening, Victor was seen pacing the backyard on his phone, voice raised and panicked. Monica slammed a window shut hard enough for a neighbor to notice. Their Tesla sat idle in the driveway, dust beginning to settle on the windshield. The McMansion, once pristine, now looked like a stage after the lights had gone down. Set pieces left behind, characters off script. From her porch, Elaine sipped her tea and waited. Courtroom 3B smelled of old wood and older argument. Sunlight filtered through the dusty high windows, slicing across the rows of empty benches like spotlights in a forgotten theater. But the front row was packed. Elaine sat in the middle, flanked by Jasmine and Patricia. Her gray cardigan was buttoned neatly, her cane resting beside her chair. Not out of necessity, but strategy. Her hair was pinned back, makeup minimal. She looked every bit the aging matriarch Monica wanted her to be, at least on the outside. Across the aisle, Monica sat upright in a fitted navy dress that was a little too tight, her expression tight with performance. Victor hovered behind her, jaw tense. A young, overpriced attorney scrolled nervously through his iPad beside them, lips moving as he reviewed talking points. At the judge's bench, Honorable Judge Lydia Whitaker adjusted her glasses, glanced at the case summary, and sighed. Case number 24, GH0881. Petition for emergency guardianship, filed by Monica Harris, against her mother, Elaine Harris. Monica stood. Your Honor, thank you for hearing this matter on such short notice. My mother's been acting erratically. I'm worried about her mental competence and her ability to make sound decisions regarding property and finances. Judge Whitaker didn't blink. Continue. Monica turned to gesture toward Elaine. She's elderly, fragile. She's made abrupt legal filings without understanding the consequences. She's being influenced, possibly manipulated by others, especially her friend Patricia and granddaughter Jasmine. I fear she's being exploited. Patricia exhaled sharply through her nose. Jasmine tensed beside Elaine, but Elaine herself didn't move. Her gaze rested softly on Monica, unmoved. I see. Judge. Whitaker leaned back. And you're requesting what? Exactly? Temporary guardianship, Monica said. All righteous concern. Just until we can determine whether she's fully, mentally capable. Uh-huh, Whitaker said flatly. Mr. Monroe? Alan Monroe stood slowly. His charcoal suit fit like armor. Your Honor, we anticipated this play. He walked to the bench, handed over a sealed envelope. Inside, you'll find medical records from Dr. Daniel Tran, licensed cognitive specialist. Full battery of mental capacity tests performed last month. Ms. Harris passed every single one. Judge Whitaker opened the folder, scanned the pages briefly, then nodded. These look thorough. Alan turned to Monica. Your Honor, I'd also like to call Ms. Jasmine Harris to testify. Briefly. Jasmine stood, face pale but calm. She walked to the witness stand, hands folded tightly in front of her. Alan's voice was crisp. Jasmine, can you tell the court what happened the night of your mother's celebratory dinner? Monica's jaw tightened. Victor muttered under his breath. Jasmine nodded. Yes, she mocked my grandmother in front of a table full of people, called her a burden, said she didn't need her anymore. I recorded it. Alan raised a brow at the judge. With the court's permission? Proceed, Judge Whitaker said. Jasmine reached into her pocket and held up her phone. The clip played on the speakers. Why keep an old woman around when you've got staff now? A few gasps rippled from the back of the courtroom. Monica's face turned the color of wet clay. Judge Whitaker looked up slowly. You're asking this court to declare your mother unfit, she said, tone steel. While you, her daughter, belittled her publicly, financially entangled yourself in her assets, and now want control over her estate? You think I was born yesterday, Mrs. Harris? Monica stammered. Your Honor, that clip is out of context. No, the judge cut in. The only context here is that your mother has the right to make her own decisions, and based on the evidence presented today, she's sharper than most of the people in this room. Alan returned to his seat. Jasmine exhaled and looked to her grandmother. Elaine hadn't said a word, but a slow, knowing smile played at the corner of her lips. Judge Whitaker banged her gavel. Petition denied. Case dismissed. Outside the courthouse steps, Victor paced with his phone glued to his ear, barking at someone about damage control. Monica sat on a bench in tight silence, arms crossed, her designer heels tapping furiously on the pavement. Elaine stepped out, the sun hitting her silver hair just right. Patricia leaned in close. She set the stage for her own ruin. Elaine smiled gently. And we're only in Act 1. The pen hovered in Elaine's hand for just a moment before touching paper. She signed with deliberate strokes, measured, steady, just as she'd done for decades when reconciling ledgers late into the night. Across from her, the realtor beamed. All cash offer, full asking price. Buyer's a developer. They'll bulldoze it and flip the lot. Elaine didn't look up. That's their business. Jasmine sat quietly beside her, hands folded tight in her lap. Her phone was off for once. Elaine signed the final page, capped the pen, and slid the folder forward. The agent stood, shaking her hand. We'll file everything today. Lockout date will be confirmed within 48 hours. Sheriff's posting comes with it. Elaine nodded once. Make sure they use the same yellow sticker. 2 days later, the sheriff returned to Windfall Way. This time, the sticker wasn't a surprise. It was a sentence. A neon verdict pasted across Monica's future. Elaine watched from inside her car this time. Jasmine sat beside her, holding her phone low, camera quietly recording. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Across the street, Monica burst out of the front door like a storm, shrieking, No, 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 you can't do this. This isn't happening. Victor, trailing behind her in wrinkled joggers, rubbed his temples like he was trying to massage the chaos away. Fix it! Monica screamed at him. You told me she couldn't touch this house. Victor turned red. It's not my fault she sold the damn dirt out from under us. You're the one who... Don't you dare put this on me. She spat, jabbing a manicured finger into his chest. I gave you everything. I trusted you. Jasmine zoomed in, her camera perfectly catching the fury, the unraveling together. Monica turned back toward the notice and tried to rip it off again, but this time, the glue held. Her nails clawed at the edges, breaking on the hard glass as her screams turned raw. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds. One man across the street angled his lawn chair discreetly for a better view. Elaine rolled her window down just a crack. The air smelled like wet grass and reckoning. Victor snapped. You should have let me handle this from the start. Monica wheeled on him. You couldn't handle a garage sale. The words cracked like a whip. Victor flinched, then threw up his hands and stormed back inside. Monica turned and saw the car across the street. Her mother, watching. She froze, for a breath, then another. And then, her voice cracked with rage. You think this is over? You think this is funny? Elaine didn't flinch, just raised a brow, then slowly rolled the window back up. That afternoon, at the bank, Elaine deposited the wire transfer. The teller smiled politely as she handed her the receipt. Big day? The woman asked, cheerful. Elaine folded the slip and placed it in her wallet. No, she said. Just a long time coming. She turned and walked out with the same quiet grace she used to carry stacks of invoices in and out of a bookkeeping office downtown. She hadn't changed, just remembered who she was. That evening, at Elaine's kitchen table, Patricia poured 2 fingers of bourbon into mismatched tumblers. Well? She asked. Elaine held up the glass in mock salute. Your silence is the loudest laugh, she said. They clinked. Patricia chuckled. I'd have screamed at her years ago. But I forget. Your patience is nuclear. Elaine gave a quiet smile but didn't respond. Her eyes drifted toward the open envelope sitting on the counter, couriered just an hour earlier by Alan Monroe. Inside it, new findings from the title search and lien discharge process. Elaine unfolded it now, rereading the highlighted section for the 3rd time. Second mortgage secured against the property under your name, Elaine Harris. Filed 18 months ago. Signature inconsistent. She stared at the forged signature. Victor's handwriting had never been particularly clever. Her hand tightened around the paper. Jasmine looked up from the sofa. Grandma. Elaine folded the document slowly. We've only just begun. Alan Monroe's face was expressionless, but his fingers tapped sharply against his legal pad, a rhythm of restrained fury. He set the folder down between them in his office conference room. The shades were drawn. The air was still. Elaine sat at the far end of the table, back straight, glasses perched on her nose. This wasn't a clerical error, Alan said, voice low. I had a forensic doc analyst look at it twice. That second mortgage paperwork? That's not your signature. Elaine gave a single nod. I knew it the second I saw the H. He loops it like a child. Alan leaned forward. It was filed through a shell lender, real estate firm out of Birmingham, only exists on paper. We traced it back. Victor's name appears in the transfer. Document. Elaine didn't flinch. Then we move forward. Already did, Alan replied, sliding her a stamped form. Fraud complaint's been filed with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Elaine read the title slowly. Affidavit of real property fraud. Forgery. False representation. Victor was in full meltdown by the time the subpoena arrived. I didn't forge anything, he snapped, pacing the living room with a tumbler of cheap whiskey in hand. I was authorized. Monica stood in the middle of the mess, boxes half-packed, mail unopened, tension wrapped around her like a too-tight corset. Authorized by who? Because my mother damn sure didn't sign off on this. Victor turned to her, desperate. You said you'd take care of it. You said she owed us. I said a lot of things, Monica hissed, but I didn't say to commit fraud in her name. Victor laughed bitterly. Oh, please. You loved the money when it was pouring in. You were too busy buying handbags to read the fine print. Monica slapped the glass out of his hand. It hit the hardwood with a sharp crack. I defended you, she shouted. In front of a judge, in front of our neighbors. I let her humiliate me and I stood there with you. She's doing this on purpose, Victor roared, grabbing the subpoena from the counter. She's coming for both of us. And she'll win, Monica whispered. The words dropped like lead between them. Courtroom 2. A felt colder than before. Judge Whitaker adjusted her robe as she flipped through the submitted documentation, her face unreadable. This, she said, holding up the notarized second mortgage, is a federal crime if proven true. Forging a lien under someone else's name, especially that of a senior citizen, is felony-level fraud. Victor sat beside his attorney, sweat bleeding through his collar. Monica sat alone now, lips drawn into a thin, pale line. Elaine remained silent. Alan stood, smooth as ice. Your Honor, we've submitted the forensic handwriting analysis, bank routing trail, and corporate registration links tracing the fraudulent mortgage back to Victor Price. Whitaker gave Victor a long, quiet look. Mr. Price, she said finally, do you have any legal defense for this? Victor opened his mouth, but his lawyer clapped a hand over it and stood. Your Honor, we request a continuance. No, Whitaker said, slapping her gavel down. Investigation proceeds. Immediate freeze on contested funds. Court will coordinate with GBI for a full audit. Monica stood suddenly. This is a witch hunt. You're letting her destroy us. Whitaker raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Harris, you're welcome to retain separate counsel if you believe you're at risk, but unless you're charging someone else with fraud, I suggest you sit down. Elaine didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than Victor's unraveling. Outside the courthouse, Patricia lit a cigarette she'd quit 6 years ago and offered one to Elaine. Elaine shook her head. Criminal court, Patricia muttered, watching Victor's car peel away from the lot like it was escaping something invisible. Now it's criminal. Elaine glanced up at the courthouse facade. It always was. They just thought I wouldn't fight back. Jasmine caught up with them, phone in hand. They're trending, she said, scrolling. Someone posted the courtroom sketch. It's already all over Atlanta Twitter. Elaine looked at the screen briefly, then turned away. She didn't need to see the fire. She'd already lit the match. The headline hit local news like a dropped brick. Lottery couple under investigation for elder fraud. Court orders financial freeze. Channel 7 ran the story first, but by mid-afternoon, it was everywhere. Clips from the court sketch, Victor's sweaty face, and Monica's mid-outburst frame looped on social media with captions like, 10 million can't buy class, and, she called her mom a burden. Look who's burdened now. Victor's mug never made it on air. Yet. But online sleuths quickly dug into his LinkedIn. Within hours, his employer's comment section filled with fire emojis and screenshots from the fraud affidavit. By noon, the company issued a statement. Victor Price is no longer affiliated with Midtown Property Finance Group, effective immediately. He didn't see it until he refreshed his inbox. Then he threw his laptop across the room. Monica sat on the floor of their now half-empty living room, phone in hand, live streaming to her 4,000 followers, most of whom were hate-watching. This is a smear campaign, she snapped into the camera. My mother has always been calculating. She's bitter. This isn't justice. This is revenge. Her eyeliner was smudged. Her cheek contour hadn't blended right. The comment stream was brutal. Sis, you stole from your mom. Enjoy jail, princess. Where's the McMansion now? Someone screen-recorded the meltdown and posted it to TikTok. It hit 800,000 views in under 6 hours. Monica shut the live stream off mid-sentence and hurled the phone at the wall. It didn't break, just bounced. Like her reputation. Windfall Way used to be tight-knit in that polite, suburban way, matching wreaths, block parties, soft gossip. Now it was silent when Monica walked her trash bins out. Even the neighbor's terrier stopped barking, like it had joined the boycott. Mrs. Ellison, who once brought over bundt cake on holidays, crossed the street when she saw her coming. Another neighbor just shook his head. Victor stayed inside. The Tesla hadn't moved in a week. At Elaine's house, there were no TV cameras, no reporters, no statements. She sat on the porch in the late afternoon light, watching the wind dance through the tall grass near the curb. Jasmine curled up on the swing beside her, head resting on her grandmother's shoulder. Elaine sipped sweet tea and said nothing for a while. Then, finally, people think revenge is loud, but it isn't. It's quiet. It's dignity when someone else screams. Jasmine nodded. You didn't have to say a word. Elaine looked toward the distant corner of the block, where Monica's house sat behind drawn blinds and hollow silence. Respect, she said softly, was worth more than $10 million. Jasmine didn't reply. She just leaned in closer and wrapped both arms around her. Elaine closed her eyes for a long moment, let the weight of Jasmine's embrace rest on her bones like armor. Across town, Victor stood at a bar off Peachtree, yelling into his phone. I need 10 grand, man. Just 10. That's nothing for you. I can flip it. Short-term hold on an auction property. Easy win. The person on the other end hung up. Victor's shoulders sagged. He shoved his phone back into his pocket, then flagged down the bartender. Put it on the tab, he muttered. There is no tab, the man replied, not even looking up. Victor slid off the stool and left, because even his drink was tired of him. That night, Patricia dropped by with a lemon pie and a raised eyebrow. Did you see her latest rant? Elaine shook her head. I don't need to. Patricia set the pie on the table, peeled back the foil. Well, she's not going quietly. Elaine poured 2 cups of coffee. She never did. Patricia sat, leaned forward. So what now? Elaine stirred her spoon, slow and deliberate. Now she learns what silence feels like when it's permanent. The sheriff's cruiser arrived just after 9 a.m. Two deputies stepping out in silence, clipboard in one hand, bolt cutters in the other. No fanfare, no camera crews, just another eviction on another broken morning. Elaine sat in the passenger seat of Patricia's Buick, parked a block away, angled just enough to watch without being seen. Jasmine crouched in the back seat, phone in hand, camera already rolling. The first thud echoed as one deputy struck the lock. The second came when the deadbolt gave way, and then the door creaked open. It didn't take long. The moving crew, 3 men in matching t-shirts and gloves, filed in like clockwork. Out came the leather sectional, the crystal vases, the glossy coffee table that once held Monica's carefully curated magazine. Now it held dust. One by one, they dumped the contents of the McMansion onto the curb like a secondhand yard sale. Sofas, boxes, designer heels, a flat screen still half wrapped in plastic. The wind carried off one of Monica's framed motivational prints. She believed she could, so she did. It landed face down in the gutter. Inside the house, Monica screamed, "Stop touching my things. I'm calling my lawyer." One deputy turned slightly, unimpressed. "You've been served, ma'am. This is official court ordered. Lockout. You can't do this to me. This is my home." Victor, pacing behind her in a stained t-shirt, turned on the deputy. "Don't you people have real criminals to deal with?" The younger deputy didn't blink. "Mortgage fraud's a felony." Victor flinched like he'd been slapped. Outside, neighbors lined the sidewalks in silent clusters. No one spoke. No one waved. They watched like they were at a funeral, but no one grieved. One woman leaned in to her husband. "Remember when they hosted that wine tasting? Thought they were royalty. Now they're out here getting evicted like reality TV rejects," he murmured back. Elaine watched as Monica collapsed to her knees in the doorway, sobbing uncontrollably. Her voice cracked, raw and feral. "They're taking everything. Everything." Victor threw his arms up and stormed off down the street, muttering curses to no one. A plastic storage bin tumbled behind him, bursting open with monogrammed towels and expired mail. Jasmine zoomed in. "You getting this?" Patricia asked, not turning around. "Every frame," Jasmine said. Monica crawled toward a pile of her things, pulling an armful of shoes into her chest like they were infants. She planned this. That witch planned all of this. Patricia's lips curled into a smile. "Karma has deputies." Elaine didn't answer, but as they drove past the curb slowly, just once, Elaine rolled her window down. The air smelled like dust and old roses. A breeze caught Monica's robe, flapping it like a defeated flag. Elaine didn't speak. She didn't wave. She just met Monica's eyes, just for a second, and offered a smile. Not smug, not cruel, faint, controlled, final. Then the car turned the corner and she was gone. Later that afternoon, Elaine stood at her kitchen sink, hands submerged in sudsy water, rinsing a casserole dish from the night before. A cardinal perched on the windowsill. Jasmine sat at the table behind her, editing the footage. "You sure you want to put this out there?" Jasmine asked. Elaine didn't look up. "It's not about wanting." Jasmine tapped the spacebar. The screen froze on Monica in mid-scream, surrounded by her belongings in a heap on the sidewalk. "It's about documenting truth," Elaine said, drying her hands. "Some people need to see the ending they earned." The law office conference room smelled like Desperation and citrus-scented Lysol. Monica sat across from her newest attorney, her third, fidgeting with the clasp on a knockoff designer handbag. Her roots were showing. Her manicure was chipped. Her phone kept buzzing, but she didn't look at it. "I'm telling you," she snapped, "this case is winnable." The attorney blinked. "Miss Harris, you've spent nearly $600,000 across 4 firms. Your mother's filings are airtight. The court's already ruled on the fraud. You have no standing." "I gave her everything," Monica hissed. "And now she's turning Jasmine against me. They're poisoning my granddaughter." "She's 19, the attorney interrupted. "She testified of her own volition." Monica stood, yanking her bag over her shoulder. "I'll find someone else. Someone who understands what family betrayal looks like." She stormed out, passing a receptionist who didn't look up. Behind her, the attorney sighed and crossed her name off the client board with a thick black marker. Victor left the next day. No note, no text, no slammed door. Just gone. Monica came home from her fifth failed consultation to find his side of the closet empty, his razor gone, his sneakers gone, a single sock still curled on the floor like a final shrug. She stood in the doorway, hands trembling, then she screamed into the silence, and the silence didn't care. The video Jasmine posted, of the lockout, the curbside breakdown, hit 2.1 million views by week's end. Comments poured in by the thousand. Karma caught the first Uber it could. Imagine stealing from your own mama and then crying when the world watches you lose. She really thought 10 mil made her untouchable. Monica tried to report the post. TikTok denied the claim in under an hour. Elaine sat with Alan Monroe the following Thursday, documents spread neatly across the table. Her posture was as straight as ever, her tone clinical. I want it updated before the weekend. Alan nodded, flipping to the signature page. No problem. Clean, enforceable, witness. Elaine glanced at Jasmine, who sat quietly across the room, watching her grandmother with a strange mix of pride and grief. This isn't just about money, Elaine said softly. It's about clarity. Alan turned the page, naming Jasmine's sole heir. No contest clause, full exclusion of Monica Harris. Not even a funeral reimbursement. Elaine didn't blink. Not even that. She signed. That night, Jasmine walked in with a folder and slid it onto the kitchen table. What's this? Elaine asked. Restraining order. Permanent. Alan said the court approved it this morning. Monica can't contact you ever again. Elaine looked at it for a long moment, and then, for the first time in months, she breathed in like she had room in her chest again. She's unraveling, Jasmine whispered. Patricia, who'd come by with apple turnovers and backup sarcasm, sipped her coffee and added, Don't look back. Just let her fall. She fell fast. Security footage from a luxury boutique downtown showed Monica in sunglasses and a ball cap, slipping a silk scarf into her oversized purse. She made it past the front door, but not past the silent alarm. The arrest video was short, 30 seconds. A single pair of handcuffs, a puffy red face, her screaming that it was a mistake, that she forgot it was in her bag. The internet didn't care. The mugshot dropped 2 hours later, and it was everywhere by dinner. Elaine sat on her porch with Jasmine and Patricia, the evening sun casting long shadows over the sidewalk. Jasmine's phone buzzed. You want to see it? She asked. Elaine hesitated, then nodded once. Jasmine turned the screen. There Monica was, puffy-eyed, hair a mess, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, holding the booking number under fluorescent lights. No filters, no angle to save her. Elaine studied it quietly, then handed the phone back. Patricia gave a low whistle. That's a fall you don't come back from. Elaine reached for her tea. Some falls, she said, are the landing they earned. The mugshot ran in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution Sunday edition, buried under the fold, but impossible to miss. Former lottery winner Monica Harris arrested for shoplifting at Lenox Square Boutique. They printed it in color. The image was even harsher in newsprint. Flat lighting, red blotched skin, mascara trails like bruises. Her mouth was half open, caught mid-plea. Her eyes looked lost, almost childlike in their confusion. Elaine sat at the kitchen table in her robe, coffee cooling beside her. The newspaper was spread neatly like she'd just finished the crossword, but her gaze stayed locked on the picture. She reached for a pair of scissors, the blade sliced clean. She folded the square carefully and slid it into a manila envelope labeled legal, personal, and tucked it into the back of her filing cabinet. Not for display, not for gloating, just recorded. Then she closed the drawer, turned off the kettle, and got on with her day. Monica made bail by mid-morning Monday, shuffled out the back of the holding facility in borrowed flats, and a hoodie that wasn't hers. No press waited, just one lone photographer from a gossip blog, snapping her through a smeared van window as she shielded her face. Her lawyer didn't speak to the cameras, but her silence screamed louder than any statement. By Tuesday, the boutique released its own video to clear the air. We prosecute all. Theft equally. We were unaware of Ms. Harris's legal history at the time of arrest. The statement included screenshots of her face from the surveillance footage, another image, another punch, to the legacy she tried to build. By Wednesday, Monica's name was stripped from every local charity board she'd once donated. One removed her with a single-line press release. We have parted ways with Monica Harris and wish her peace and healing. At Elaine's, things were quiet, not joyful, not smug, just clean air, light chores, and the gentle rhythm of freedom. Jasmine wandered into the sunroom with her laptop and sat cross-legged on the floor. Channel 2 ran the footage again. They're calling it a cautionary tale of excess. Elaine didn't look up from her sewing. Let them talk. She's paying, Jasmine said quietly. Elaine set the needle down and looked out the window. The roses had started to open. Consequence, she murmured. Not payment, just balance. Patricia breezed in carrying a bakery box and a smirk. They're already selling she believed she could merch online. Monogrammed mugs, kitchen towels, ironic candles. Jasmine burst out laughing. You're joking. Nope. Patricia plucked a croissant from the box and sank into the armchair. And someone's edited her mugshot onto a mock Vogue cover. I mean, it's tacky, but funny. Elaine didn't laugh, but her lips twitched, barely. I don't need revenge, she said softly. I need closure. There was a pause. Jasmine lowered her laptop. Patricia blinked. Elaine stood and poured herself a glass of water, then carried it to the porch. The sun was warm on her face. A gentle breeze lifted the edge of the newspaper still folded on the side table. She sat, glass in hand, and closed her eyes. Downtown, Monica sat in the lobby of a low-rent bail bond filling out her address on a battered clipboard. Under permanent residence, she hesitated. Then she scratched something out and kept writing. Behind her, a woman in a zip-up hoodie muttered into her phone, "Girl, you won't believe who's sitting 2 feet from me." The internet didn't move on. Not yet. That night, Jasmine watched her grandmother place the mugshot clipping, still folded, into a box on the top shelf of her bedroom closet. The same box that held old tax returns, her marriage license, and a faded photo of Elaine's first apartment key. You're saving it? Elaine nodded. Just a reminder. Of her? Elaine turned, eyes clear. Of what I survived. The federal courthouse downtown was older than it. Marble halls polished by generations of footsteps, ceilings high enough to make people feel small. On the 6th floor, courtroom 6B buzzed with quiet tension. Victor sat at the defense table in a charcoal suit that didn't fit as well as it used to. His jaw twitched. His left foot tapped under the table, trying and failing to find rhythm. His lawyer leaned over, whispering last-minute instructions he wasn't hearing. Behind them, Monica sat stiffly in the gallery. Her blouse was wrinkled, her lip liner drawn just past the edges. She clutched a wad of tissues she hadn't used yet, as if trying to hold the future in her palm. Elaine entered last, flanked by Jasmine and Alan Monroe. Her steps were steady, her expression unreadable. She carried nothing but herself. When the bailiff called court to order, Judge Whitaker emerged with her usual cool restraint. Docket 22. FR 6711, she announced, scanning her notes. State of Georgia versus Victor Leonard Price. Charges: real estate fraud, forgery, and criminal misrepresentation. Victor didn't look at Elaine, but Elaine looked at him. Once, then never again. Elaine was the first to take the stand. Alan stood, hands clasped behind his back. Mrs. Harris, do you recognize this document? He held up the forged second mortgage, familiar now. Almost like an old bruise. I do. And is this your signature? Number. It's an imitation. Her voice was clear. A poor one. Did you authorize Mr. Price to file this on your behalf? Elaine shook her head. I didn't authorize anything. He stole my name. Then he tried to bury me with it. Murmurs rippled from the benches. Judge Whitaker banged her gavel once. The room fell still. Next came Jasmine. She took the stand with her phone already in her hand. These are the messages between Victor and my mom, she said, voice steady. They talk about pushing the mortgage through without telling Grandma. He even calls it a temporary shuffle, like it was some sort of game. Alan displayed the texts on the courtroom monitors. Judge Whitaker leaned forward, squinting. She'll never know. Old people don't read fine print. Just sign the form and slide it through. Her name's clean. It'll go through easy. Monica buried her face in her hands. She didn't cry. Not yet. Victor's attorney tried to shift blame to a bad broker, claimed Victor had been misled. But the paper trail didn't lie, and neither did the voice memo. Alan played one next, Victor's own voice, brash and overconfident, recorded during a call Jasmine had intercepted by accident. If she wants to play hardball, she'll find out real quick I got nothing to lose. The jury barely moved. They didn't have to. The sentencing was swift. Judge Whitaker stared down from the bench, lips thin. Mr. Price, you abused financial trust. You forged a legal instrument against a senior citizen. And then, instead of remorse, you doubled down with arrogance. This court finds you guilty on all counts. Victor swallowed hard. I sentence you to 8 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 5. Effective immediately. Gasps echoed behind him. Monica stood up, her face pale. No, wait. You don't understand. He didn't mean. He was just trying to help. Her voice cracked. Please. Victor turned toward her. Their eyes met. He didn't say a word. 2 officers approached. One handcuffed him, the other guided him toward the side door. He didn't resist. Monica dropped into the bench like her knees had given out, the tissues falling to the floor. Alone. Outside, cameras waited. Jasmine pulled Elaine gently through the crowd while Alan fended off reporters. Patricia waited at the curb, passenger door open. Inside the car, Jasmine turned to her grandmother. You okay? Elaine nodded. I'm fine. Jasmine touched her hand. He's gone. Elaine looked out the window, watching the last flicker of Victor's shadow disappear through the courthouse doors. Then she said, almost to herself, one snake down. The light turned red on Ponce de Leon Avenue. Elaine's car coasted to a soft stop. Patricia, riding shotgun, reached to adjust the AC. Jasmine sat in the back seat scrolling idly until her hand froze mid-swipe. Grandma, she said quietly, don't look, but she's here. Elaine didn't need to ask who. Across the intersection, crouched on the curb near the entrance of a Shell gas station, Monica Harris was panhandling, hair tangled beneath a faded Braves cap, hoodie zipped up to her throat despite the heat. A piece of cardboard rested on her knees. Anything helps. God bless no icon. Just the rhythmic nod of someone who'd learned how to disappear in plain sight. Elaine's grip on the steering wheel didn't change. Her face didn't shift. But Patricia saw it in her throat. The subtle flutter of a held breath. Jasmine lifted her phone and angled it low, quietly recording. You want me to stop? No, Elaine said, voice barely audible. The light was still red. Longest red they'd hit all day. Patricia glanced sideways. You don't owe her rescue. Not anymore. Elaine exhaled slowly. I know. They watched as a man exited the gas station, paused, and dropped a crumpled dollar into Monica's cup. She nodded in thanks without looking up. She gave you nothing, Patricia said. And you gave her your life. Elaine's voice came quieter than before. I gave her life. She gave it back hollow. The light turned green. Elaine didn't hit the gas. Not yet. Later that evening, back home, Elaine pulled a sealed envelope from the center drawer of her roll-top desk. Inside, a cashier's check. $25,000, made out to the Atlanta Women's Transitional Shelter. She slid it into a plain white envelope and scribbled a note in her tight, deliberate cursive. For the women who never had a choice, or lost theirs. She handed it to Patricia without ceremony. Will you drop this off tomorrow? Of course. Elaine turned back to the window, watching the last of the sunlight pour over the hydrangea. Jasmine posted the video clip that night under a burner account. No hashtags, no captions, just Monica Harris, once the face of lottery glitz and suburbia, now bowed on concrete, her hands trembling as she clutched a coffee cup with 3 coins in it. The clip went viral anyway. That's the lady from the $10 million story, right? Is this real? She really fell like that? It looped on millions of screens, 30 seconds of silence, shame, and karmic symmetry. Elaine didn't watch it. She didn't need to. The next morning, she stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom, adjusted the collar on her blouse, smoothed the sides of her gray trousers. Her reflection stared back calm, but not cold. Jasmine lingered in the doorway. You okay? Elaine didn't answer right away. Then, she was my daughter. I know. She still is, Elaine said. But that doesn't mean she gets to break me. She won't, Jasmine said. She already failed. Elaine turned and looked at her granddaughter, this girl who saw everything and still chose to stay. She reached forward and tucked a stray curl behind Jasmine's ear. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For standing where she refused to. Patricia returned later that day with an empty envelope and a smile. They cried when they opened it, said you've changed lives. Elaine took the envelope without a word and placed it in her desk drawer beside the mugshot. That night, when she passed the corner near the gas station again, Monica was gone. just an empty space where pride had once stood. It started with reposts, a handful of anonymous TikToks, stitched together with side-by-side clips. Monica, in her McMansion, boasting about her lottery win. Why keep an old woman around? Followed by that silent, shrunken figure outside the gas station, cardboard sign in her lap, head down. Then the commentary videos came. You want a masterclass in karma? Watch this. This ain't a revenge story. This is an origin story for a woman named Elaine. By the end of the week, the video had been shared over 12 million times. The algorithm crowned her story, and Monica's fall wasn't just a spectacle, it was a warning. Be careful who you step on climbing the ladder. They might own the land. Elaine Harris is the blueprint. Dignity moves quietly, but damn does it move mountains. Elaine didn't post. She didn't tweet. She didn't even own a TikTok account, but she was everywhere. It wasn't long before local media circled back. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran a retrospective, The Harris Family Collapse, Greed, Fraud, and a Mother's Silence. They reached out for comment. Elaine declined, so they quoted a neighbor instead. She never raised her voice, just raised the stakes. A podcast featured a full episode on the matriarch who won without swinging. Morning shows used it as a trending segment. Online columnists called it poetic restoration. Monica became a cautionary tale taught in business ethics classes and shared in women's financial forums. Elaine simply tended to her garden. One afternoon, Jasmine scrolled through the latest wave of posts while Patricia sipped sun tea from a mason jar. BuzzFeed made a quiz, Jasmine said, laughing. What kind of Elaine Harris are you? Elaine raised an eyebrow without looking up from her crossword. Patricia leaned back on the porch swing, grinning. Told you. Justice doesn't always wear robes. Elaine folded the paper. No, she said. Sometimes it wears orthopedic shoes and minds its business. Jasmine reached over and squeezed her hand. You're stronger than their cruelty. Elaine held that for a moment, then nodded. That's how you outlive it. That evening, Elaine pulled a box from beneath her bed. Inside were old bills, pink slips from a job she lost in the 80s, letters from Monica. Back when the tone was sweet and the ink wasn't cold. She set those aside. At the very bottom, beneath the papers and receipts, was a single white envelope, still sealed. The closing check from the sale of the Windfall Way property. Elaine stared at it, then she stood. Monday morning, Alan Monroe entered her kitchen carrying a folder and a look of careful curiosity. You're sure about this? He asked. Elaine poured him coffee. I don't plan to spend what's left trying to fill old holes. He opened the folder. The paperwork's clean. We can file today. The foundation will be in your name, with full tax-exempt status, purpose listed, housing security, education, and dignity for women in crisis. Elaine sipped her tea. It's not revenge if it leaves something behind. He handed her the form. She signed. Just like that, the Elaine Harris Foundation was born. That night, Jasmine posted the announcement quietly, from her real account this time. No hashtags, just a photo. Elaine in her garden, back to the camera, watering her roses. The caption read, She didn't just survive, she rebuilt the world beneath her. Monica wasn't named in the post. She didn't need to be. By the following morning, donations began pouring in. $10 here, $500 there. Former classmates, neighbors, strangers. Elaine never looked at the totals. She looked at the women it reached. The first check went to a single mother of 3 evicted from a motel. The second to a community college scholarship for women over 40 returning to school. By Friday, the Atlanta Ledger ran a full-page feature, From Betrayal to Legacy, the woman who turned pain into power. Elaine clipped the article and filed it in the same folder as the mugshot, right beside the envelope from the women's shelter. The community center smelled faintly of lemon polish and optimism, folding chairs lined up in neat rows. A banner, the Elaine Harris Foundation, Women Rising, hung against the far wall, its letters hand-painted by local students. Elaine stood at the front of the room, blazer pressed, heels low but polished. A microphone had been offered. She'd politely declined. Instead, she spoke the way she always had, clear, quiet, and without apology. This scholarship isn't a gift, she said. It's a door. And you've already turned the handle. The dozen women seated in the front row, some young, some silver-haired, all survivors in their own ways, clapped softly. Not polite applause, grateful. Behind them, Jasmine wiped her eyes and tried to hide it with a camera lens. Patricia stood next to her, arms crossed, smiling like she'd won a bet nobody else saw coming. The next morning, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran a short feature on page 2. Local woman launches program to empower women in transition. Elaine clipped the article and slipped it into her folder. No headlines, no fanfare, just a record of what she'd built when no one thought she'd rise. She tucked the folder into the same drawer that once held her betrayal. Now it held her rebuilding. Back at home, Jasmine danced around the kitchen holding a letter from a young woman in the shelter. "Dear Ms. Harris, I thought about giving up. Your foundation paid for my GED. Now I'm starting nursing school." Elaine looked up from her tea. Her name? Simone. 29. Atlanta native. Elaine nodded slowly. "Send her flowers. First day of class." Jasmine blinked. "Really? She deserves to be seen." That afternoon, Patricia arrived holding a small velvet box. "What's that?" Elaine asked. "A thank you from the ladies over at the shelter board." She opened the lid. Inside was a simple gold pendant, engraved with a single word: Builder. Elaine looked at it for a long time, then closed the box gently and whispered, "Better than 10 million. Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Better than revenge." Elaine smiled. "That too." Later that week, Jasmine organized a small luncheon in the garden. Just the three of them. No press, no guests, just sunlight, lemonade, and a table of sandwiches nobody touched. "I still think you should speak at the community gala," Jasmine said, pouring tea. "They're calling you a pillar." Elaine shook her head. "Let them call me what they want. I know what I am." Patricia bit into a cucumber sandwich. "What's that?" Elaine sipped her drink. "Free." Across town, Monica's name no longer opened doors. Her email bounces, her phone disconnected. The boutique pressed charges, and the trial was quiet, short, forgettable. Her story faded from headlines because the world moved on. But Elaine's didn't fade. It deepened. By fall, the foundation had funded 18 scholarships, 6 small business grants, and a new literacy program for women over 50. Every dollar came from what once sat beneath the marble floors of a house that had never really been a home. Now, it built homes, future, hope. One night, Jasmine sat on the porch swing, laptop open, designing flyers for the winter fundraiser. Elaine stepped outside, wrapped in her cardigan, and looked at the stars. "You tired?" Jasmine asked. Elaine smiled. "Number I feel unfinished, like there's more." "There is," Jasmine said, "and it has your name on it." Elaine looked toward the horizon. The night was still, but it wasn't empty. "I spent half my life being quiet," she said. "Now my silence has a purpose." The table was small, only 3 seats, mismatched placemats, a candle flickering in a thrifted glass holder. The scent of rosemary and garlic floated from the kitchen, and a berry cobbler cooled on the windowsill like something out of a long-forgotten memory. Elaine moved between the stove and the table with a rhythm that came not from obligation, but peace. Patricia was already seated, sipping wine with her feet tucked beneath her. Jasmine set down the silverware with the care of someone arranging sacred things. No speeches, no grand event, just dinner, just home. They ate slow, like time had finally given them permission to. No tension, no pointed silences, only laughter in between bites. Real laughter. The kind that clings to the edges of glasses and fills the gaps left by years of noise. Jasmine nudged a dish toward Elaine. "You used to cook this every holiday, even when nobody thanked you for it." Elaine shrugged, unbothered. "People don't need to thank you for breathing." Patricia raised her glass. "But sometimes they do. When you make it through the fire and come out with dessert." They clinked, softly. As the plates cleared and the night deepened, Jasmine lingered near the sideboard. Her eyes landed on the framed certificate, the Elaine Harris Foundation, embossed in gold, set gently beside a small vase of garden roses. "I think about how things started," Jasmine said, "and where they could have ended." Elaine watched her. "You think we changed the ending?" "I think," Jasmine said, "you rewrote the whole book." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Hell of a plot twist, too." Jasmine turned to her grandmother, more serious now. "You gave me more than inheritance. You gave me strength." Elaine smiled quietly. "That's the only part that grows when it's shared." They sat like that for a while, candlelight casting soft halos on their faces, a kind of sacred stillness blanketing the room. Elaine stood to clear the mugs, then paused with her hands wrapped around one. Respect, she said finally, lasts longer than money. She walked the cups to the sink, washed them in silence, then returned with a tray of mint tea. They poured, sipped, and didn't rush. Outside, the wind stirred the hydrangeas. Inside, a life had been rebuilt. Not through fury, not through spectacle, but through patience, boundaries, and a refusal to forget who she was. As the candle burned low and the night thinned into quiet, Jasmine curled up in the armchair, and Patricia dozed lightly beneath a crocheted throw. Elaine sat at the head of the table, alone now, teacup in hand, her face soft in the glow. She looked toward the certificate again. Not pride, not vengeance, just completion. She raised her cup slightly, as if in toast. To the silence that outlasted every scream, she murmured. Then softly, finally, the last line. She mocked me for being old. Days later, she was homeless, and I built a legacy she could never touch.